Hi, it's me, RachaelLyn, and today's Things on Thursday are things that I think are worth spending more money on. Okay, so the first item on the list of things that I think are worth spending a little bit more money on is makeup. Now, I don't buy a whole lot of different makeups. I don't spend a lot of money on eyeshadows. That's probably the one thing that's like, well, you can get away with eyeshadow not being the greatest. And maybe I would change my tune if I used fancy eyeshadow, but that's the one thing that like I'm not too concerned about. As far as things that really spend a long time on your skin, like foundation, as well as anything that touches your eyes, except eyeshadow, because it's not really like in your eye area, it's just like kind of on your skin. Those things I think are worth spending more money on. I have used cheap makeup in the past, and it does not work well for my skin. It can cause breakouts and things like that. I have used cheap mascara, cheap eyeliner, and the first big difference is how it goes on. Eyeliner, it's like scraping my eye to get the eyeliner on, but if you use something slightly more expensive, and I'm not saying like really expensive, but slightly more expensive, it goes on like butter. Now, I will say the main brand that I use as far as my makeup is Sephora. It's not super expensive, but it is a little bit more than going to the dollar store and getting makeup from the dollar store. It is a little bit more expensive than getting your makeup at, you know, Walmart or the cosmetic section at, you know, the grocery store. I'll have to look up how much that stuff is. I'm not really sure, but the Sephora makeup that I get is the Sephora brand. I use their eyeliner, I use their foundation, I use their powder. That stuff is the important stuff to me. I spend somewhere between $10 and $20 for each item, separate item. Foundation is more like $40, but it lasts me a very long time. Close to a year, actually, is how long it should last me. So, if not a year or more. So it will last me a very long time, and I think that $40 to spend on that is not that big a deal, but it makes a huge difference in the way that my skin looks and feels. It makes a huge difference with my eyes, as far as them not feeling gunky, as far as the makeup staying put, as far as how it goes on. It's not, the mascara is not clumpy. So those are the kinds of things that I think are worth spending more money on as far as makeup. Now, like blush, I mean, it came from Sephora, but it was like it was one of the free birthday gifts. And so I used that. And then as far as eyeshadow, just using like CoverGirl or something like that. I'm fine with using that cheap stuff because it doesn't actually touch the important parts of my eyes, and it's not, it's a lot more forgiving than something like foundation or even powder and things like that. All right, the next thing that I think is worth spending a little bit more money on goes along with makeup, and that is eye makeup remover. I actually just recently tried to buy, now I use the liquid bottle kind, and then I also use wipes to wipe off my face. The wipes are fine. I bought cheaper wipes. They work fine, but the eye makeup remover that I bought that was cheaper, I tried to go from the Neutrogena brand, which is a little bit more, it's like $7 to $8 a bottle, and I tried to go to the I don't know if it's Kroger brand, but it is an off brand. The wipes are much cheaper, and they're fine, but the eye makeup remover, it doesn't work as well. Like, I really have to like keep wiping and wiping and wiping, but using the Neutrogena oil-free makeup eye remover, that is really good stuff. I have actually used an eye makeup remover that is even more expensive than that, more like $12 to $16 a bottle, and it works even better. But I kind of tend to, now that I've tried the really cheap stuff, I am going to lean towards using Neutrogena eye makeup remover for right now, because it works pretty well. It's not the best, but like I said, things that are worth spending a little bit more money on, that's one of those things. And I'm definitely not going to use the cheaper one, even though it's like $1 or $2 a bottle instead of $7 or $8. It's a huge difference in price. But I think now that I've tried the cheaper one, it's worth it to spend a little bit more to get a better product. The next thing that I think is better to spend a little bit more money on is cheese. I love cheese and I love fancy cheeses, and the better the cheese is, the more expensive it is. And I think it's worth it to spend a little bit more money on cheese. Now, that being said, I don't do a whole lot of grocery shopping at my house. But even when I did my own grocery shopping and I lived on my own, and I do my own grocery shopping for at least breakfast and lunch, I don't really buy much cheese because I know that the cheap stuff isn't really worth it. And I would rather like save up and wait for the good cheese because it's worth it. The next thing that I think is worth spending a little bit more money on is chocolate. I know I've talked about before that I love the Lindor Lindt truffles. They are my favorite chocolates, but they're not even the best chocolate that I've ever had. I do spend close to $10 a bag for, I don't know, maybe like 15 or so little truffles, and they're worth it. They are so worth it. Now, I make them last a very long time, but they are worth it. Like, they're so worth it. And expensive chocolate is much better than not. And I even growing up, I would not eat plain chocolate. Like a Hershey bar, I've never liked it, ever. I wouldn't eat it. If I ate cheap chocolate, it had to have other things in it, like a Reese cup or a Snickers bar or something like that. Even just like a Hershey bar with almonds, it's not enough. It didn't have enough different stuff in it. And I thought it was just because I didn't really like chocolate. But as I grew older, I realized like it's because I don't like this cheap chocolate stuff. You might be different. You might love chocolate no matter how it comes. And so the cheaper chocolate might be fine for you. But for me, chocolate is worth it when it's more expensive. And, you know, like I love buying the really, really super, super dark chocolate. It's in like the organic section and it's just like really expensive chocolate. And I would buy a bar and I could make that bar last for like over a month. So, it's worth it to me. And just like the cheese, having a little bit spread out or waiting until you could buy some good stuff is worth it, at least to me. Okay, so the last thing on my list as far as things that I would be willing to spend more money for are my prescription eye drops. So a few years ago, the eye doctor put me on prescription eye drops for my eyes, and it was fine. And I had the generic brand, and it was fine. I think they're like $10 or something. They're not that expensive, and my insurance covers it. So, I mean, it wasn't a big deal to me, and they were fine. But after like a couple of years, like they started hurting my eyes, like excruciatingly painfully hurting my eyes. And I stopped using them last year. And I even kind of like put off going to the eye doctor because I didn't want to tell her that I stopped using the eye drops. And when I last saw her a couple of weeks ago, I told her that I wasn't using the eye drops because they hurt, like excruciatingly painful. Like it felt like someone was stabbing a knife in my eyes as soon as I put a drop in my eye. And she was like, oh, well, I don't want you to use those. And she said, let me give you another one. And then she told me that was the generic brand. And so she was going to give me a name brand of eye drops that I needed. And she gave me a sample to use. So I'm still on the sample. So I don't know how the price difference is going to be. And I don't know how much more my insurance will cover. But I will tell you right now, the name brand eye drops, they don't hurt. I asked her what the difference would be between the last eye drops and the new ones because I was like scared to put these drops in my eyes, and she told me that it was because the other brand is generic, and that the generic brands, they use different fillers, and those fillers will change like from year to year. So the eye drops that I was putting in my eyes last year are not necessarily the same eye drops that I was putting in my eyes like 2 years before, which I don't know how they can do that with medicines, but apparently they do. And so I feel like not necessarily that all generic medicines are bad and that, you know, you should always have the name brand medicine, but I definitely think that at least for my eye drops, I cannot use the generic brand. I need to use a name brand, and I would be willing to pay more to help my eyes without pain. So those are 5 of the things that I think are worth spending more money on. I am curious to know what you think is worth spending a little bit more money on, or if you agree or disagree with anything that I said here. Go ahead and leave me a comment down below. I'd like to know your opinions and what you think. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you are not already. So I will see you in the next one. Bye.